Wendy is an Information Resource Officer, IRO, currently based in Washington, D.C. She provides support for American spaces and U.S. embassies throughout the Caribbean, South and Central America, and is the IRO with direct responsibility for the Caribbean and Cuba. She joined the U.S. Foreign Service in 2003 and has served in India, Brazil, Afghanistan, and Thailand. Before joining the U.S. Foreign Service, she worked for more than 35 years in all types of libraries, including universities, schools, NGOs, and UN agencies around the world. A Boston, Massachusetts native, Wendy received her undergraduate degree in literature from the American University in Washington, D.C., and her master's degree in library and information science from Long Island University in New York. Let's welcome her, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see so many familiar faces. I figure talking about money will always get an audience. As you can probably guess, I'm not going to be doing a PowerPoint. I'm just going to be speaking to you about the process and how we're changing it in Washington, the support funds process. So as you all know, my office in Washington, the Office of American Spaces, receives a nice big lump sum of money from government to give to all American spaces around the world. We have, as I think you heard, over 600, almost 700 different kinds of spaces. Binational centers are one kind. We also have American corners. Some of you also have American corners in your countries. And we have IRCs in the embassy and American centers, all different kinds. So every year we do a process to get proposals from all of our spaces, and we review them to decide how we're going to allocate this money. So where my office is right now really deep in the process for FY17. I'm sure you all know we use fiscal year, which starts, it starts in October 1st. So we're finishing up FY16, and we're now looking at FY17 funding. So what we're doing now is we will be sending out a cable, which is our formal way of communicating with our other embassies around the world, announcing that the process is beginning. They will get the cable that will give basic instructions on how to do it. And then we will ask for proposals from everybody. The proposals are due around November-ish time frame. And then we review them, and then we try to get the money out by mid-February, early March. Because we realize, the fiscal year is almost halfway over by then. But we work as hard as we can going through proposals to get the money out as quickly as possible. But even though the proposals are not due until November, one of the important things I want to emphasize is start thinking now. What sort of things would you like to request on your support funds proposal? How will you use the money? So that when your embassy, when the public affairs section says to you, hey, can you help fill in the proposal, you've already got ideas. You already know. And I think having ABLA now is a really good chance to start thinking. You're listening to everybody. Start thinking of what you would like. So once it's time to submit the proposal, when you get the form, when you get all of this stuff, it's pretty much done. You've already talked to everybody at your binational center. You've already come up with a plan. And then it's just filling in the details. So what we are doing is we've been having lots of meetings to discuss lessons learned from last year, the year before. Every year we learn new things. What worked, what didn't work, how to make it simpler. One of the main things we're taking for this coming fiscal year is to simplify the form. I don't know how many of you actually filled in the form or you sent it to your embassy and they did the form itself. But we realized last year it was more complicated than it needed to be. One of the main changes we are making is the Office of American Spaces, is no longer going to require a spreadsheet from you. Before, when you wanted funds, you had to do a detailed spreadsheet. We want this much money we want to buy new tables, so we want 10 tables at this much each, we want 15 chairs, all this sort of stuff. So we realized that we in our office did not really need that much in detail. The embassy may require it from you because they have to know exactly how you want to use the money. But on the form sent to Washington, we won't be requiring a spreadsheet. But we're going to ask for more in terms of text, what you write. I'll go into that more. But obviously we want to know how you will spend the money. But we really don't care if you buy 10 tables or 7 tables. So those details we don't need. The embassy probably will need. So what we are going to ask for, we're more interested in big categories. For example, the big categories will be programming. How much are you going to spend on programming? How much are you going to spend on technology? Not how many iPads you're going to buy at so much each, but what kinds of technology will you be doing? Media. And by media we mean other things like if you want books, if you want magazines, if you want DVDs, if you want whatever, different kinds of media. Building expenses and renovations. Are you going to be doing any renovations, painting, all that sort of thing? And furnishings. I keep mentioning tables and chairs. Furnishings is a wonderful resource. It's the Smithsonian Idea Book. And don't forget, the Idea Book is for ideas. You don't have to order the things from the Idea Book. You can take the ideas, take the dimensions, take the pictures to local furniture makers in your area and get them to make it. So that definitely is possible. This year we are placing much more of an emphasis on the justifications. I don't know if you remember, but in the form last year, you said how much you wanted for everything, and then we asked you in a block, justification. And many people throughout the world, their justifications were things like, we want to be the best in the community. We want to bring in more people. Those are wonderful justifications, but what we want even more are justifications for the funding you're asking for. If you want, for example, we want $3,000 for technology. Okay. Of that, in the justification section, I would say, I would like $1,500 for computers so that we can participate in MOOCs and offer these online courses to students, and the MOOCs would deal with entrepreneurship and climate change. So you're justifying why you want $3,000 for technology. We want $1,500 for iPads so that we can have more book clubs. So we can download ebooks onto it, we can lend them to our patrons, and we can run book clubs. That's why we want the $1,500. So we would like to see justifications for the items. How will repainting your classrooms, what's the justification? More than just the walls need to be repainted. Okay, but how will that help you do better? From our point of view, U.S. government point of view, how will repainting your walls help? So that's what we mean by justification. And we weren't clear last year. We realized this in reading proposals. Use the space that's given. We're not limiting you to space, but we don't want just a laundry list of everything you've done in the past. We know all the wonderful things you've done. We have seen it, but we don't need in these proposals to see a laundry list. We want specifics to this year's funds request. We're really interested in what you will do with the future funds. Not what, there is a space in the form for how did you spend your FY16 money, the money we sent you last year. How did you spend it? If you had a problem spending it all, we understand that. I know a lot of you, because, especially I think it's Argentina, because of the school year, you may, and our calendar year, our fiscal year is very different. Sometimes you can't get the money spent in our fiscal year. That's fine, we understand. We work with BNC or spaces all over the world and things happen, but let us know. We weren't able to, I've seen in other regions, we were not able to spend all of the FY16 money because there was a coup and there was government-ish problems and there were riots in the street and we had to close down for 6 months. It happens. That's okay. But let us know, explain why. Not that we didn't spend the money because we just didn't get around to it. So let us know how you spent the FY16 money. And again, if you have a good reason, it's perfectly understandable. So again, we know that you do wonderful work. We know that you offer fantastic services. But the justification section is not justifying your BNC. It's justifying the requests that you make. And we realized we weren't clear last year. And so this year, our instructions, we tried last year to make the instructions really short. Because as we said, people don't read instructions, But we realized that we know what we wanted. And we really want to be clear to make sure that everybody understands what we want. And again, like everybody from my office and from Washington has been saying over and over, the 5 pillars. Try to link your justifications to these pillars. We want $1,500 for computers so we can do MOOCs, which affect our English language, which we want to do book clubs to promote something about study in the US. We'll try to link them to the pillars. And again, we talk, in addition to the 5 pillars, to mission goals and priorities. Every embassy and consulate around the world has goals, and it depends on the country they're in, obviously. Certain goals are more important in other parts of the world, in other cities, in other countries. Remember that. So even if your embassy has not given you a list of their goals, if you think about it, you'll know what they are. What are the major issues in the country that the U.S. is thinking about? And they're issues you are all thinking about. Try to build those goals into what you are, into your justifications for what you want. One of the things we are going to focus on this year in looking at proposals is programming. Programming in addition to your teaching, which you all do wonderful jobs. I mean, you all offer the best language instruction in your cities. But what other kinds of programs can you offer? Again, with our goals, whether it's book clubs, whether it's lectures, whether it's makerspace activities, what kind of programs? And we're really going to look at helping to support programming, different kinds of programming. We would love to see binational centers cooperate with one another. Those of you who have multiple branches, do something at one and work with the other branches. Whether you invite them all in, whether you do things with Google Hangout or Skype or however you do them. Within your branch, within your country. If you have many BNCs in your country, why not work together and do a program? And with other countries in the region. If you hear about another BNC in another country doing a program, see if you can join in with them. Whether you send people or they send people or you just do it virtually. We love to see cooperation amongst BNCs throughout the region. Why not do it worldwide? With technology, if you're doing a Google Hangout, why not do it with Europe or do it with Africa, a place in Africa? You know, get people together from around the world. That's the sort of stuff we love. As I said, I'll go into the process in a moment, but as I said, if you did not have the opportunity to spend all of the money from FY16, we understand that, as long as you tell us the reasons. Because we don't, for you, something that happened in your country is the most obvious thing in the world. For us, it may not be. There was one last year, I forget where, a hurricane, it was in the Caribbean. A hurricane went through and destroyed the building. They obviously, to them, that was a life-changing event. Back in Washington, yes, I read about it, but I didn't remember. So if you just let us know when things happen. The money, from our point of view, the money, we call it one-year money. Meaning, when it's sent, we send the money to the embassy. When the embassy gives it to you, it has to be spent in that fiscal year, or it vanishes, just disappears. So there are ways that the embassy can work with you to make the money go over the fiscal year. It gets complicated, but there are ways they can do it. So you don't care about our fiscal issues. But the point is, keep in mind that you want to make sure that the money is not lost. That you can use it in the next fiscal year. You can use it in October, November, whatever. As I said, life happens. If you can't use it, certainly let us know. Maybe they could move the money to another BNC in your country. Maybe they could use it we could move it to another BNC in another South American country, WHA country. Who knows? But if we know about it ahead of time, I mean, I've worked in other regions where so much money gets lost because just people forgot. And it does get lost. Thank you. One thing we really like, and I've spoken to a few of you about this over the past few days, on the form, there will be a space for how much money the host institution, that's you guys, how much you put in to the American space. And we don't just mean how much you pay for teachers, but what other ways do you help support the programming? And we really like to see that. We want to know that, yes, you want money from us for programming, but you are also putting money in for programming. You want money from us to buy new furniture to make your space, the look and feel of America and all, but you also do some of that yourself. There's an expression in English, skin in the game? Does anyone know that one? How much skin do you put in the game? I don't know where that came from, but. So, is it from sports, I guess? How much the Olympics? Maybe from the Olympics. But so, keep that in mind when you're coming up with your proposal. How much do you put in, other than just the salaries and the rent for your building and all that sort of stuff? How much and I know you all do, but just make sure we in Washington find out about it, because it does make a difference. So now the process. So those are just some background things. The process that you do it, send it in. The embassy uploads it to the database. Well, I should say before it gets uploaded, they will put it in the database. Then your IRO, you all know who your information resource officer is. It's either Laura, Sheila, Carol, or a new person, a new IRO, Sarah, just went to Brazil, or me for the Caribbean. We get to look at all the proposals that come. We can make comments if we want. We can read them and comment. Once the IRO has submitted their approval or not approval or whatever, their comments, then it gets uploaded into the database. Once it gets uploaded into the database, then we start reviewing and talking about them. Just a little note that the fields, then we have in Washington, we've divided the world up by field support staff. I'm the field support person for this region. So then they all come to me after they're uploaded. Last year, I read 116 proposals. Remember, when you do yours, it's going to be one of 116. And then my colleagues who cover Europe, she read, I think, 190 proposals. The one from Africa read, I don't remember the numbers, but we got over 500 proposals worldwide. So we all have to read a lot of them, which is why we ask you to keep them as short as possible. So what we do after we read them, we then share them with our other WHA colleagues. I see Silvio in the back, his and David, their office covering WHA, the region. So they get the copies and we get the copies. And then we all sit and discuss them. Every single one we talk about. And we will decide, this request, is sort of foolish. This request, yeah, they really could use it. This BNC does so much programming. And we come up with a consensus of how much of your proposal we feel we should fund. We do this for every single region. Then we have to add it all up and make sure there's enough money. Last year, and I don't know the budget for this year, last year my office had around $15 million, or $13 million worldwide. Our total, if you added up what everyone requested, was $23 million. So we've got to figure out where to make these cuts and changes. Some are easy because some people asked in other regions for crazy things. But some are not easy. And everybody in their region really, really pushes for their region to get the funding. We did very well in WHA. My colleagues did a really good job of pushing, and we did quite well. But keep in mind, unfortunately, it is a worldwide process. Then once we all agree how much we're going to give to the region, we put it all together, and I send it up to my senior people in my office. And they get it from everybody. And then they look at it. And usually they agree with us because we are the experts in what we studied them all. Once they approve it, then the money gets sort of transferred back to another office, and then the money goes out to the embassies. And then the embassies will give it, whatever process they use, they will send the money out to you. So the embassy itself, the post, actually, we don't send the money out to each one. Because if you figure out with 500 and something, we just can't send it out to each person. It goes through the embassy. They keep track of the actual, how you spend it, how you get it, all of that. So it's a really long process. We're trying very hard to shorten it. We want to get the money out to you as quickly as possible. Because the faster you get it, the longer you have. And we know ordering, all that stuff takes time. We absolutely understand it. And we really are pushing to get it out faster. But with when we have hundreds to read and we have to discuss it and we want to come up with the best use of the money, it takes time. So get them in as quickly as you can. That's why if you start thinking now, as soon as you are given the form, you can fill it in, you can get it back, we can get it. I mean, we can push the process as quickly as possible. Couple of little bureaucratic things. One of the things we do ask for are statistics. I know they're a pain in the neck to do, but make sure they're up to date. The easiest way for us to eliminate something so I don't have to read it, and they've done it in other regions, if you don't have statistics in for a year, we just won't give you any money. That's easy for me, you know, it's one less I have to read. I don't think anyone in WHA had that problem. But please, keep your statistics up to date. I know everyone asks for different kinds of statistics, but we do look at them. We will look to see, for example, if you had a certain number of visitors in FY15, and we gave you money for programming, and your statistics, your number of visitors went down, we're going to question that. But if your number of visitors doubled, and you ask for more money for programming, yeah, I think you guys know how to, you spent it well. So we're more likely to give you more money. So we do use the statistics. Do you all know the standards matrix? Remember we did that bronze, silver, gold? We're simplifying that on the form, thank goodness. Make sure though it's up to date. There is going to be a box on the form. Is your matrix up to date? Yes, no. Check it. This you can do now. It's a self-assessment. Look at it. See how you've improved. See where you could be going. That's what the matrix is for, to help you do better work. Once it's uploaded on the database, make sure it's actually uploaded. Computers, we all know, do weird things. We had, I think it was one of the African posts, they said, why didn't we get any funding? We said, but you never submitted anything. They said, yes, we did. It got lost somewhere in cyberspace. So once it's uploaded, either you check or just ask your post, you know, a few weeks later, hey, did it get there? Because things vanish. Make sure it's the final version that gets uploaded. Because you can work on the form and then not upload it and then make changes. Just make sure that what is uploaded is what you wanted to be uploaded. Each post, if you think of how many spaces in your country, that's the number that somebody at the embassy or the consulate has to read and upload and check. Make it as easy for them as possible. Whether it's, if you say you've uploaded your statistics, you really have. So that they don't have to go back and forth with you to make sure that your proposal is complete. As I said, we're going to send out better, or not, more complete instructions. We're also going to send out a complete list of what we will and what we will not fund. There are certain things we just aren't going to fund. Read it carefully. I've seen proposals where we specifically say we will not fund X and somebody asks for it. We're not going to fund it, but it's a waste of your time, it's a waste of my time. So if your embassy doesn't give you the list, ask them for it so that everybody knows, you know, what you can ask for. For example, we're really trying to move away from young children, little ones, children's playgrounds, children's books, that sort of thing. You as an independent BNC can do what you like, but from Washington we're trying to reach more older people, whether it's, you know, young students, but not the little preschool kids, things like that. Our target age is basically 15 to 35. We're not checking, you know, exact, but so when we see requests for really little ones, it's wonderful. It's probably really good for your BNC to do that, but that's where you use your own funds, that you make sure we know, because that's part of your skin in the game. So just read the instruction, read what's allowed and what's not allowed. Because we also have to be able to justify what we're asking for to Congress. I mean, those are our big boss. You know, someone will have to go to Capitol Hill to get this money for us. And we have to be able to justify it. So your justifications, you're showing us how you use the funds we give. If we can say we gave $13 million to American spaces around the world last year, and it increased our visibility in all of these countries by 500%, that's a really good justification to get more money from Capitol Hill. So it's not just for us, it really goes higher, justifying why we're giving money. Because a lot of people, you know, in the States sort of feel, you know, what good does it do to give money to other countries, you know. These are perfect examples. Binational centers are perfect examples of how we can get a lot for not that much money. So, but we need the stories from you. Whether it's statistics, the plain ordinary numbers, whether it's other kinds of reporting. If you do a wonderful program, please let your IRO know. The IRO can send it on to Washington. We can make sure it gets sent around to the people that really need to see these things. So please be realistic when you do your proposals. Think about it. I'm going to give you a number, though people told me don't give numbers, but just in your mind. If you think about 500 spaces, $13 million, do some math, around $10,000 to $20,000 per space. This number certainly can vary. If you have a really good idea, you have a really good proposal, and you ask for more, we certainly will not say no, blanket no. They want $50,000, cut them off. That we won't do. But I've seen too many proposals around the world that are so high, without good justifications, without good expectations. We have to cut somewhere. So in your mind when you're planning, if you keep that number in mind, I think it'll make your budgeting a lot easier when you think. Again, if you have a good idea for more, put it in, absolutely. But don't be super disappointed if you request 90,000 and you get 20. Because we have to cut spaces somewhere. Don't request things we said we wouldn't fund. That'll save you time, that'll save us time. So it just makes it easier if your budgets are more realistic, saves you time, saves the embassy time, saves us time, saves our friends, colleagues in other departments time. It saves everybody time so that we can focus on the really good projects. Think about cost sharing. We pushed a lot of cost sharing. If you want something, if you are willing to pay for half, and you ask us for half, that's really good, rather than ask us to pay for everything. Again, it's skin in the game. You're showing that it's important to you and you'll pay for part of it. For things like technology, especially computers, don't forget, computers, they don't have a long life. So instead of asking for a huge 60 computers in 1 year, why not 30 this year, 30 next year, 30 the year after? That way you have to replace them on a cycle. Makes more sense. You can say, we want 60 computers, we will pay for a third, and ask the embassy. Maybe the embassy can put in money for a third, and your office can put in money for a third. Things like that. I don't know what your embassies are all different, but it's worth trying to cost share. We really like that word. We like seeing cost sharing ideas. You can do things like use volunteers and tell us. I've seen spaces in other countries. There was a wonderful one in Thailand where they got funding from us to buy all the paint and stuff. But they had student volunteers from the art school paint the walls. So they didn't have to hire guys to paint. So not only it saved money, but they had volunteers getting involved in the space. And they got really great art. So they didn't have to buy painting, things to put on the walls. Things like that really, really work. If you have other sources for funding, don't forget, I mean, many of you work within your community. We love to, if you can get funding to help out, cost share with other people in your community, other organizations, please, we encourage that. Don't forget, when you work on it, and again, it can change from post to post, don't forget the staff at the mission will work with you. The local staff who work at the embassy will help you with the proposal. Some of them, you send them the information and they do the uploading. Some places you do the uploading. They will work with you if you have questions. The American officers will work with you if you have questions. Your IRO will work with you if you have questions. So please, take the advice and the suggestions from all these people. I really don't have to say this to you guys, but I've seen too many proposals written that are really, really bad English. You're all teachers, so teaching English is one of your primary functions. But if you have someone who's helping you with it, just please check your English. When I read 115 of them, badly written things really get me. Your IRO will have a chance to comment before it gets locked into the system. So if you have something that you think may be an issue, talk to your IRO before. Make sure they understand what's going on so that when they read it, they can say, yes, this is a wonderful proposal, we need I had some in the past where as an IRO, I read them and I said, I really don't like this idea. The first I've heard of it, I don't like it. It's not practical. So talk with them first. You can work it out. There have also been cases where they talk to the IRO and they still want to put something in, and the IRO has said, we don't really believe this is a good use of funds, but they say they will do it this way. So just work with them so that when they get your proposal, especially if you're asking for something, either a lot of money or something a little bit unusual, it's not a surprise to them. So you all know who your IRO is, I hope. Work with them. As I said, the funding, you should be, hopefully the first official announcement from my office will come out in September, and then we'll start the process rolling, so you should hopefully, fingers crossed, get your money by mid-March. And the reason we're spending a lot of money and a lot of time and everything on this is because we really value what you do. And we think with some extra funding from Washington, you can do even more good stuff. So we're looking forward to seeing your proposals, looking forward to reading them all. And are there any questions for me? Yes?
In terms of the program, what are the items that you can ask for in the program? That's one question. Then the other question is for the statistics. We have been having them on certain guidelines that change. Is there any way we can get an updated version of how the BNCs should count the visitors and the visits?
Absolutely. Okay, I'll answer the second one first. Statistics. We realize that BNCs are very different from other kinds of spaces, and we have to count statistics differently. As soon as we figure out any changes, we will let you all know. We understand that and we're working on it. What kinds of programming? Don't forget, many kinds of programming, if you want to bring in speakers and things, you don't ask us, ask your embassy, or you're at the embassy. Things like if you bring in a speaker, it may come from a different office in Washington. So I didn't want to get into too many, because there aren't that many embassy folks here, but if it's a speaker, you go to the speaker's office, whatever. So different, other than that, be creative in your requests. It's a vague answer, but it's just be creative. Yeah?
You said that nationwide or joint proposals are good. What if you have present nationwide proposal and also an individual proposal?
It has to be an individual proposal. We give funds to a specific BNC. But what I'm suggesting is, if you're asking for programming money, you can divide it up and say, we want to do this countrywide program, and we figure it'll cost $5,000 to do it. And you put in $2,000 in your budget. Another BNC says the same thing. We're going to do this joint program with, and we want $2,000. And the other BNC says we want to. So you can divide the cost among your BNCs. But at this point anyway, we're not taking proposals from a country. We're taking proposals from each BNC individually.
Wendy,
Yep.
Wendy, can I just make a comment
Please.
on that? This came out of a discussion we had yesterday.
Yeah.
So I thought we have had some proposals where there's been like one BNC that's kind of run the project. And is that possible?
If the project will cost $10,000 and you say we're going to do it countrywide, sure.
Okay.
But you can't submit something for the whole region. I was thinking to divide it up just so that we don't look at it and say, oh, $10,000 for one BNC. You can divide it up. Or as Carol said, if you take the whole budget and work with the others, you can say that. But they should mention it in their proposal too, just so that we know that it's it's being split. Yep.
Following up on Gloria's question about programming, just a couple of examples. Teacher training, would that be considered a programming, or are you thinking more on the lines of cultural, we bring a group and they do a tour?
I would say teacher training is not what we would be willing to fund as much as, there might be other departments in the State Department who would be. It's really a shame, but each department in the State Department, we call it a pot of money. And we spend our pot of money on our issues. There is a department or office that deals with bringing in speakers. They could use it to fly in someone. So teacher training would probably come from another office. So if you want to do teacher training, check with your embassy and they can help you send that proposal to somebody else.
Could you give an example of a type of program that was accepted last year, just to give us a better idea of what these programs could be?
MOOCs, MOOCs, the online courses. We're running a series of MOOCs. It's a 5-week program. They come in, but we want to bring in a facilitator. We want to do the syllabus. We want to print things. We want to do a program like that. We want to bring in. We want to do book clubs. We want to that kind of program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm fairly new at this, so excuse me if it's a naive question, but it seems it would be helpful to me if I could see American Spaces reports that you submit that show the efficiency or effectivity of your work. If I could see those kinds of reports that you submit that show how great the program is, it would help me understand where I fit and what work I can do that would feed into the success of the overall success.
I don't really have any examples, because it's just sort of who asks me when they ask me. I mean, I don't have a copy of a report that was sent to Congress with all of that. I think your best bet is, to work with with other BNCs in the region and find out the kind of programs and things they do. Yeah, Silvio, please.
I just, one of the things that Carol mentioned yesterday was the strategic planning. I think the bottom line for us when we look at the proposals back to Washington is whether or not you have an idea of what you want to accomplish working with your embassy. So a number of these specific questions that you have, when it comes to American Spaces, see them as tools to reach an objective. And so you're looking at the overall programming. And so how do you use these funds to provide certain tools to get to that point? So you're looking at, let's say you're looking at programs that deal with English language education, and programs out of Washington, Ambassador Yegos basically told us in our office to look at programs that are comprehensive, that are strategic. So when we say that, it's basically, look, this is what we're working with the embassy and a number of issues. This is what we're working on initially. Oftentimes, most of the programs we're working on already do fit into that mold. So take a look at the five sort of core issues to provide the services that provide in each ENC, and look at the four pillars of our foreign policy in the Western Hemisphere. You can combine those, and I'm sure we'll find resources to support you. That's what we really want to convey here. The American Spaces Funds, going back to your questions, those are the funds that you will receive from our offices in Washington, basically saying you're part of this network. But remember, you are a network too. So by combining forces, when we're engaging your public affairs office, your CAO, you'll be able to see what others are doing, and so you can leverage those funds. Further question, I would suggest, have this conversation. Not that you've been in Ottawa, go back to your countries, go with, engage Montevideo, engage the embassies so you have a better sense. What are some of the programs that are coming up? What are some of the programs that the embassy is thinking about? And so where do you fit in, and how do you use those funds to make sure that you're able to reach those goals? That would be best.
And Silvio is also one of the ones who read 115 proposals last year, so who knows? But thank you. I appreciate this time with you. If you have any questions, please, you can check with me. The other IROs will be around. Silvio is around. And we've all lived this process for several years, so we can give you advice and suggestions.